Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Dwayne.
Dwayne who?
Dwayne the bathtub. I'm drowning.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That's from kindergarten. Seriously.
Welcome to the Laughing Mystics, an unorthodox journey through the liturgical year with Louise Barr and Marci Maderi. Well, Marci, oh my gosh, there's just not enough minutes in a day to talk to you because I want to talk to you about you and your recent trip that you took and just everyday stuff happening in the city, but we don't have time for that.
Nope, man. It's all about the Bible.
It's all about the Bible.
About the Bible.
And Marci's channeling Tennessee right now.
That's right, because I was just there.
Yeah.
And a couple shout outs before we begin. I want to shout out to my cousin Susie.
Hey, Susie.
She is really a cool person, lives in Dubuque, Iowa, and likes to listen to us while she quilts. And she's a great quilter.
Oh, nice image. Fantastic.
And then another shout out to Jackie, who's another regular listener, and had a baby the last time we were recording. His name is Benjamin.
Oh, wow.
Benjamin
Congratulations.
Matthew. Yes. So where are we, Laura, in this
We are
liturgical
on
year?
The 19th Sunday in the kingdom of heaven is now. It's now. It's now. A reading from Wisdom. The night of the Passover was known beforehand to our fathers, that with sure knowledge of the oaths in which they put their faith, they might have courage. Your people awaited the salvation of the just and the destruction of their foes. For when you punished our adversaries, in this you glorified us whom you had summoned. For in secret the holy children of the good were offering sacrifice and putting into effect with one accord the divine institution. I love the rhythms of this. You know, I didn't practice out loud. I did read it beforehand, and it has such a lovely rhythm. I always appreciate that.
I think that goes throughout the entire book of wisdom.
Yeah.
It's just got really nice flow.
It's poetry.
And that's, the whole genre of wisdom books in the Bible are more poetic, like the Song of Songs or Proverbs or Psalms. I was doing a little reading and a commentary just to acknowledge that this book of wisdom was written very late, around 50 BCE, and was dialoguing with Greek philosophy. And so there are three main themes or topics that are addressed in this book of wisdom that Greek philosophy also talks about. One is knowledge or foreknowledge. Another is justice, divine justice, and the good. So just to get us set up as we look at this, how those three play out: knowledge, justice, and the good.
Yeah, I want to mention I've been reading Karen Armstrong, and so I've read sections of A History of God, The Case for God. I think those are two different books. And then there's one called A Short History of Myth. And in one of those books, she talks about the axial period and how all of this stuff was happening. And she talks about Greek philosophy and that being sort of like in the rest of the world, whether it was the Hindus or the Chinese or the Jews, there was a lot of mythic thinking, but for the Greeks, they were trying to work on what Armstrong calls logos, not in the way of the biblical logos, but in logos being the rational mind versus mythos being this right-brained way of thinking, this mythic way of thinking. There's so much here that's very deep water for me, but as I hear you, I think maybe, I wonder if what you're partly saying is that the wisdom writer is having a dialogue between mythos and logos in the Karen Armstrong way of thinking about that.
That's a great way to put it. That's
Okay.
a great way to put it. So taking that idea of logos and that rational thought and putting it in dialogue with the myth or belief or faith.
Mystical, yeah.
The mystical.
Yeah. That Armstrong stuff I've been posting, it's going to come out later, but been posting it on the Facebook page, and she's very postable.
She's amazing.
I think the next two, this week and the next week, I'm noticing so much shadow in the readings. And this first one about, you labeled it as justice, but I have a little issue with, okay, I'm the holy child of the good and my foes will be destroyed, whereas we all are both good and evil. The demarcation between good and evil is very stark here. And I think about, I was doing some active imagination around this first reading, and I was thinking about being in the car and being angry at a foe who cut me off. And no, this is just lighthearted. This didn't really happen. This was just in my imagination. But being upset, like, oh, I hope you get a ticket. Like sort of that angry response, like, get the foe, God, get him. I just think that there's a lot of shadow in this and glory in the punishment of our adversaries.
Right. And yes, I love your active imagination. I think of it more as like indigenous people whose lands are taken from them.
Well, yeah.
Right? And that there's no justice.
Mm-hmm.
There's no court of law. There's no one to give the ticket. There is nothing. And I just heard recently that for indigenous people, they do believe justice will come even if it takes 7 generations. So that long arc of justice, was that Martin Luther King Jr., bends towards the good, the long arm. So that's where I go for this.
Yeah.
Like
I like your reframe a lot.
Well, and that's as a people, but like as an individual, I like your idea, Laura, about, yep, I have shadow in me too.
I think about, so here are some other thoughts I had. The fight of the political left and the political right, and each side's wanting the destruction of the other. Is destruction ever necessary? In fairy tales, the villains get destroyed pretty horribly.
Yes.
Like the one that I remember now offhand, it happens in a couple different fairy tales. The bad queen is put in a barrel filled with nails and rolled down the hill. I know that's
horrible.
So horrible. There
That's
are
so
many
horrible.
There are many horrible fairy tale deaths, and in reading the Jungian interpretations of this, Louise von Franz, one of the chief people, would say, when evil is encountered in the psyche, it needs to be, what is the word, neutralized. In fact, I just did a film on Snow White and Red Rose, and at the end of that film, the bear kills the little, sorry, spoiler, the bear kills the little greedy dwarf that's the word in the fairy tale, the little guy, who is bad. He's a bad guy. Mm-hmm. And the bear doesn't mess around. And part of the meaning of the fairy tale I've read is that you don't want to mess around, neutralize what is evil or bad within myself. I don't know. It's an interesting question about how do we deal with evil inside or outside. This God and this story of Exodus is, we are not going to mess around. We've given 9 plagues. This last one is going to pretty much take you out. The killing of the firstborn child.
Right. Well, and that God does offer 9 chances.
For sure.
And and eventually it catches up to them. Sometimes I think of like people who consistently make bad or hurtful choices, it eventually catches up with them.
It does.
And sometimes all I have to do is get out of the way and let that boomerang come back around.
It's so true. And I think psychologically, there is something in the human psyche. Now, maybe if somebody's a sociopath, this doesn't happen. I have no idea. But I think in general psychology, there is a higher power that enacts karmic retribution in the person themselves. Mm-hmm. I think it's a mysterious thing.
It comes back round. There is a truth to it. Even if it's just within me, that I create my own misery.
Yeah, I think internal suffering is invisible to the world sometimes, but it's mm-hmm. really there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of which, in this reading, in secret the holy children of the good, and that refers to the original Passover night, but I think there's a lot in the Bible that talks about what we do in secret is what we're judged on, and that I kind of like this image of secretly offering sacrifice and putting into effect the divine institution in the bigger sense, not just of Passover.
Well, it matters what I do when nobody else is looking. A reading from the letter to Hebrews. Sisters and brothers, faith is the realization of what is hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Because of it, ancestors were well attested. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive an inheritance. He went out, not knowing where he was to go. By faith, he sojourned in the promised land as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and maker is God. By faith, he received power to generate, even though he was past the normal age, and Sarah herself was sterile. For he thought that the one who had made the promise was trustworthy. So it was that there came from one man, himself as good as dead, descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as countless as the sands on the seashore.
So my first question is, what comes forward from my own dead place?
Wow. We're just jumping in the deep end
Yeah,
here.
Why not?
So what comes forward from your dead place?
Lots of things have. And a lot of my creative work comes out of a dead place, a place of not knowing, a place of stuckness, feeling barren. That's what comes. I had the question. I didn't have the answer. That's the first thing that comes. How about you?
Say the question again. Give
What
me just some more time to think about it.
What comes forward from my own dead place?
Surprise.
Mm.
Surprise, because I'm not expecting anything. I think of my husband Ed after husband number one died. I wasn't ever going to get remarried. I was very happy with that thought. I joked with my friends. I said I did. I said I do. I did, and I'm done. Oh yeah, no. Why get remarried? I had a house. I had a job that supported me and the kids. I had kids. I had tons of friends. Lovely social life. I did not need a man to mess things up. So I really kind of closed that door, all right? I created that dead space within myself for a marriage. And then out of the blue, this guy shows up and engages my heart in a way that it had not felt for a long time. Okay, what's the theme of this? Faith. And I like it because it actually kind of talks about what faith is. Faith is the realization of what is hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
Right. Joseph Campbell has a great story. He talks about the Knights of the Round Table and how when you were a knight, your instruction was to take a path through the darkest part of the forest where there was no path. To find a place in the darkest part of the forest where there was no path. Because if there was a path, it wasn't your path. Somebody had already taken it. And so I think about Abraham described here and all of us who are called to take our unique journeys where there is no path, where there is no evidence that this is going to work out, and trust the calling. And I'm so amazed that even though, I'm getting an age, there are still callings, just like Abraham and Sarah. I still get callings that keep me on my toes and filled with faith in what is not seen but hoped for.
And listeners, Laura is far from old and has so much life and ideas and energy and creativity. We can expect this, I think, for another 30 years.
Oh, okay. Then I'll be really old. Then I'll be ancient. I also like the symbol of the city again, that we are being compared to a city with foundations whose architect and maker is God. And we had read about the city in Revelation, and it's a very cool image that I think I can play with about architecture and foundations and the rooms. Now I'm thinking of the interior castle.
Yes. Teresa of Avila. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that beautiful metaphor of the city for a people, a community of people,
right.
To go from tent dwellers with individuals to a city for a community of people. Well, and it's an interesting contrast, right? Because the first reading from wisdom was about knowledge and foreknowledge, and yet this one is really just about faith, about doing things that aren't seen, just to walk forward without, although I suppose God did tell Abraham, you will have descendants as numerous as the stars.
Yeah,
that is true.
I think it is both and, right?
Mm-hmm.
We hold I hold all the time faith and doubt constantly. And so did Paul, and so did the Israelites. And I think it's probably really helpful to remember that instead of going, oh, they had it all figured out.
Right. Well, even Sarah laughing at the idea that she was going to have a child.
And again, to repeat, it's an example that we can all bear creative fruit, even if not physical fruit, throughout our lives. And we are called to that.
Right. Even if we doubt ourselves.
Yes. I love this image. So it was that they came forth from one man, himself as good as dead. The walking dead, the zombie Abraham.
I think, Laura, you just say that to make me laugh.
I do.
It worked.
A reading from the Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not be afraid any longer, little flock, for your Father is pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your belongings and give alms. Provide money bags for yourselves that do not wear out, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven that no thief can reach nor moth destroy. For where your treasure is, there also will your heart be. Gird your loins and light your lamps, and be like servants who await their master's return from a wedding, ready to open immediately when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds vigilant on his arrival. Amen, I say to you, he will gird himself, have them recline at table, and proceed to wait on them. And should he come in the second or third watch and find them prepared in this way, blessed are those servants. Be sure of this, if the master of the house had known the hour when the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect the Son of Man will come."
Then Peter said, "Lord, is this parable meant for us or for everyone?" And the Lord replied, "Who then is the faithful and the prudent steward, whom the master will put in charge of his servants, to distribute the food allowance at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master on arrival finds doing so. Truly, I say to you, the master will put the servant in charge of all his property. But if the servant says to himself, 'My master is delayed in coming,' and begins to beat the men servants and the maid servants, to eat and drink and get drunk, and that servant's master will come, or on an unexpected day, and at an unknown hour, and will punish the servant severely, and assign him a place with the unfaithful. That servant who knew his master's will, but did not make preparations, nor act in accord with his will, shall be severely beaten. And the servant who is ignorant of his master's will, but acted in a way deserving of a severe beating, shall be beaten only lightly. Much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more."
Yikes.
I wonder what Peter thought. Like, oh, why did I ask that question?
Yeah, right.
Oh, man. Because Peter asks, is this for us or for everyone? And Jesus pretty much says, okay, you're going to be have a lot more expectations.
Again, it's really psychologically true. I know, again, von Franz has said a couple different places that I've read, people who have a calling to be especially creative, and they deny that calling, they will suffer a lot. I guess just in general, if you have a particular calling and you don't follow it, you're going to pay a bigger price than just the average Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't seem, quote, just, but it just is what it is.
Yes. Well, like knowing and not abiding is different than not knowing.
Well, not in our court of law. Officer, I didn't know doesn't help me. But in a deeper law.
Right. I guess I'm thinking more interpersonal. You know, I say something that you find offensive. I didn't realize what I said would be offensive. Feels different than knowing that I was going to offend you and did it anyway.
For sure. This idea of, it reminds me of the wonderful story of the talents, right? And
yes.
And that's really very similar to the end of this one, that more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more knowledge or more talents. Mm-hmm. In the regular way of using that word, more is expected.
And I think we pay that price internally and also in the world.
I agree. And we're back to kind of a karma story here.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that they put these readings kind of together, because it does feel like things shift in this reading line to line. I mean, the first paragraph, where your treasure is, that's where your heart is going to be. But then we get this other parable about keeping watch. So, you know, we could read this as keeping watch for the return in a kind of a literal way, Christ coming back. What other ways can we read this? What are we watching for? What are we needing to be alert to?
Makes me think of Mary Oliver, the poet. I had the fortune of listening to her read some of her poetry and give a lecture. And someone asked, right, what's the most important thing? And she said, pay attention. And that's really what I get out of this. Yes, some people can go towards that second coming in the big way, in the meta way. But also it's about paying attention in all the little ways to notice the beauty that surrounds us.
Yeah. And I also think that when the Son of Man comes might be those pivotal moments of my life when I come to a fork in the road and I can make the choice that is life-giving, or the other choice that might be easier but is going to be there'll be a big price to be paid if I make that choice. And I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. And I think early in my life, the choice to study theater versus doing something that made more sense. My mom really wanted me to study dietetics. I was always interested in food and nutrition, and that was a pretty big why in the fork in the road. Do this thing that would have been responsible versus do this thing that made no sense at all.
But gave you joy.
It didn't even give me joy. It didn't. It was haunting. It was painful. It made no sense.
Okay, all right. No sense. I'm with you now.
Still doesn't make sense in my life, but it's been the calling that I have said yes to at every crossing. And yeah, I just was looking for an example. Maybe you have an example of the Son of Man, that moment when you need to answer the door and act right and not be sleeping or whatever.
Well, this is a very small example. Many, many years ago, back in Wisconsin, I went through the bank drive-through to withdraw some money, before ATMs. That's how long ago. And the teller accidentally gave me $50 more. And, I pulled ahead, counted. I noticed the mistake, and I could have driven away.
Yeah.
There would be no account of it. I could have used the money, honestly.
Yeah.
But I drove around the building, went back in line, and said, "You gave me too much money. Here's the money back." And she's like, "Oh, thank you. I would have, gotten to so much trouble." Oh, and I'm sure she would have. Maybe even lost her job. Maybe in some way that kingdom of heaven was birthed in that moment, in that choice.
Yeah.
But it is those little choices that this gospel is talking about. If when we think, oh, no one's looking, no one will notice, I'm going to behave poorly, there is consequence for that.
I love this, and I love this idea of paying attention and not going to sleep and not, taking opportunities to use power in a corrupt way, that we never know when grace is available, or, that miracle for ourselves or for the world is ripe.
I just was talking to someone who is very sure that the second coming is right around the corner, and everything happening in Israel and Gaza is a part of it, and reading the book of Revelation very literally. And I did not argue. I just listened. But I thought about readings like this. We really don't know the day and the hour. To that need to live every day as best as we can, to live with kindness and compassion every day. And so then it doesn't matter when the second coming or the end of the world will happen.
There's a wonderful guy named Michael Meade who's a mythologist, and he takes ancient stories and he helps us see how the wisdom applies to today. And he often talks about politics, and I think what I get from him is that this feeling of apocalypse, this feeling of the end of the world, is accurate to what's happening. In fact, going back to Karen Armstrong in her A Short History of Myth, it's amazing because she talks about the Paleolithic period and how when it's ending, the old gods aren't working, and there's this feeling of collapse. And then I hope I get this right, and then the axial period begins. And at the end of the axial period, there's that same feeling of a collapse of the old ways and a disorientation, and that is where we are now. That's very clearly where we are as science. And Armstrong this is her main thing that she's beating on in these works, is science, logos, has replaced mythos. And so for the majority of people, maybe not a majority, for a lot of people on the planet, they have no religion anymore. They have no mythic world anymore. And that is apocalyptic. And so we are living through apocalyptic times internally. And so seeing it outside makes sense psychologically.
That's really beautifully said.
Thank
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And reminds me of what Elia Delio also says, that we're at that point at the end of the axial age, and we're using all that axial understanding, or trying to, and it's not working anymore.
Exactly. So many of us are trying to add our voices to create that bridge to the new way. I have to say, too, as I think about this reading, and I've given myself a challenge to think about how I might want to stage a reading like this at church. And we can do it in our imagination. And even in the imagination, I find it kind of shocking. Because to be in church and to suddenly arrange to have somebody break into the service like a thief, like a robber, and to give us all that experience of waking up. You know, in church, I think on the good level, we kind of can go into a sort of a sleepy place that is a good place, like not in the brain, more in the mythic way of, but I can also go to sleep. And so to be woken up with an alternative way of doing this reading where somebody breaks into the space as a kind of a performance and has us wake up to what the reading is saying. Nobody would let me do that. So I'll just talk about it here.
Of course, my first thought is, they might get shot.
Oh, no.
I mean, if somebody really thinks, or attacked, or, somebody really thinks somebody's breaking in this day when there's so much violence, I would not want to be the actor.
Yeah. It's sad, because I think my thought is always, as I've told Marci in the past, some holy disruption is what we need in Mass to kind of wake us up. And most people really don't want that. So that I'm always disappointed that my crazy ideas don't get heard. I was directing a play, and I was trying to help a young woman take a moment on stage and really experience in the moment on stage a sense of surprise. And I kept giving her this feedback, and I couldn't get a different performance from her. So when we were watching somebody else and we were in the audience, I leaned over to her and I whispered in her ear, "I heard you were pregnant." And she reacted with such a shriek of, "What?" And I said, "That's the performance. That's what I'm looking for." I tricked her, right? And that's what I'd love to do with a reading like this. Like, wake up, wake up, wake up.
So that line, for where your treasure is, there also will your heart be. So, Laura, where is your treasure? What would you name as your treasure?
I think my heart tends to be at doing inner work and creative work, and that is where my treasure lies. And I think my whole life I've wanted time for that more than money. I would always trade in time for money. That's where my treasure is. How about you?
I think it's relationships. I'm a relationship junkie, but I really do treasure that relationship with my husband and kids and sisters and parents, all my friends, with Laura. So that I definitely think is my treasure. And, I did some reflecting, like, how do you even know what your treasure is? And I think, as you mentioned, Laura, is where do we spend our time? Where do we put our energy? And I have less time for my own creative endeavors because I'm leaning into relationship. So that says something to me, okay, so this is where my heart is at.
Yeah. And, there's a part of me that could go, "Oh, no, I didn't choose as well as Marci. Marci sounds better than me."
Shut up.
But then I think about the Enneagram.
Yeah.
And my Enneagram, I'm a 4, and that really does figure in to the kind of hermit type of life that I can lead.
And the importance of the interior life and the importance of creativity.
Yeah.
And the gift that is to the world. And on the Enneagram, I'm a 2, which is all relationship all the time. So it all makes sense. Right. So this reading, about, knocking on the door makes me think of a knock-knock joke.
Okay, do it.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Dwayne.
I think I've heard this one before. Dwayne who?
Dwayne the bathtub on grounding.
I will start and stop the episode with that. Oh, I'm sorry, listeners. I apologize. But it's worth it to hear Marci laugh. It's the best sound in the world next to my husband's laughter. Those are the best sounds in the world. And I hope that you, listeners, might share this podcast with somebody who likes to hear laughter and maybe think about spiritual questions. We'd love to help get this podcast into more ears. And thank you so much for listening. There's also an easy way now to rate, or easier maybe. It's linked on the show notes. It's called Rate My Podcast / The Laughing.Mystics. And if you use that link, you should be able to leave a review or a rating. We thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And we hope you have a fantastic day, whatever you're doing.